How are you? Welcome back. Uh, I hope you've all been well. I've been pretty good. Uh, Although I did, unfortunately, around Friday, I kind of hurt myself. Unfortunately, yo, philosophy time. Welcome in, last a lot. Yes, philosophy time. Going to be. I think my plan this today is going to be to finish out the this chapter because I mean, we're on number 7 of this reading, and there's still, like, we're not even halfway through the book. But I suppose these are quite like difficult topics. But I suppose as well, I usually take about half an hour to even get into it. Sorry, that was too happy a yo, as you said you hurt yourself. I kind of I on Monday, I think it was, I kind of just like slightly pulled a muscle in my neck, like, like kind of my trap area, and I couldn't. My neck was very stiff. But then by Wednesday, it felt fine again. So I was like, okay, that's grand. So I went off into training, and then it got worse. And I think it was a mix of the initial stiffness, the freezing cold, and lying on my side in such a way that, like, I think I compressed, like, because I was lying on the same side that I hurt myself on. I think I compressed, like, I guess the muscle and the stuff there, because I've had, like, it's like either a trapped nerve or some kind of ligament or just really really tight muscles, and it's taken a while to start to loosen out. My shoulder, thankfully, is all good now, because it was like I could feel it in my neck, and whenever I turned, I could feel it going down my shoulder and kind of a little bit into the tricep, but not much. It was mostly in the shoulder. But that the shoulder's kind of grand now. I can move it around. I can turn it and twist it and do stuff with it. It's all good. But still in my neck, I have a lot more mobility than I've had for the past couple of days. But the pain is still there a little bit, unfortunately. Um, so remember, if you're training or doing anything, make sure, one, don't immediately jump back into training when you hurt yourself a little bit. Even though I literally just thought it was just like a stiff, like, oh, I maybe I slightly pulled the muscle or something, or you know it was a little bit. I didn't even feel it initially when I was training. It was only when I woke up, and it was the same thing when I did the other day training on Wednesday. I woke up and I was just in pain, like, really, like, I'm gonna admit it was sore. And I was surprised I got back to sleep. Like, literally just like even moving my arm or trying to turn my head beyond like 10 degrees either side. Ooh, that sucked. That really really sucked. And the worst part was, when I woke up first, I said I was lying on my side, and I've had this happen before, but this is the first time I had this happen with some kind of you know feeling that, or some kind of issue with with pain. But my arm was completely dead. I didn't have any feeling in the arm. Now I knew that this was just pins and needles and it would come back, but because it was so sore, and it was just like, there wasn't any strength in it. It was just constantly flopping around. I tried to, like, lift it up. I couldn't, and I was trying to sit up, which itself was sore. It seemed, I think it must have been in connection with, like, my back and shoulder and neck. So, like, any movement was sore. But I was trying to sit up and I couldn't lift my hand off the bed. So I had to grab my arm with my other hand and lift it up, and it was limp. It was like a dead body. And I had to, like, kind of really slowly lift it up and just dropped it on my lap, and then I was like, oh, ow. So that was kind of lame, but I've been taking, like, painkillers and some muscle relaxers and uh some stuff. It's definitely loosening out. It's just that last little bit in the neck. It's kind of in an area that, like, it feels like it wants to crack. When you kind of, when you turn your head or something, or you move in a certain way, or you're rolling your shoulders and you feel that kind of point of pressure. It kind of builds up, builds up, builds up, and then there's that satisfying, and you're nice and free again. That's kind of what it feels like at all times. Well, not at all times, but if I start kind of moving my head. And, like, I mean, that's a great feeling. And ever since my shoulders started to loosen up, it kind of cracked, like, multiple times, and now it's all good again. Um, well, um, thank you very much, Mr. Anonymous, Miss Anon, for the gift sub. Very kind of you. I'm sure NPC D or D as they're known will very much appreciate it. They don't have much. I mean, besides ad free viewing and a single emote. Well, actually, I guess there's two emotes, isn't there? There's this and this. You get this is what you get for subscribing, and thank you so much for the follow, Astro Parsecs, or otherwise known as Parsecs. Parsecs himself is a VTuber. I haven't been able to catch their streams, but they're a very nice person. I've spoken with them a few times. They're very very smart. So like the way I do like readings on philosophy, he does hi Parsecs, welcome in, thank you for the first time chat. He does Parsecs does readings on like scientific journals or like studies and stuff. I believe I've heard that anyway. I'm sure you do other things. I just it's difficult to catch. I think you're kind of very busy yourself, aren't you, Parsecs? I think I remember seeing that you're trying your best to find time to stream, but it's just like life is in the way, and I know that all too well myself. But I did mean to stream on Friday, but I was, as I said, like this is kind of first day of that pain, and I just was not in the mood to stream at all. I'm sure you are a hyper busy person. I can be, especially like last October. I was very busy. I was traveling all over and stuff. I've kind of gotten into a nice routine now where I'm able to get at least 3 to 4 streams a week. Get in my study, get in my work. Go to the gym, although this time it seems the gym fucked me over. Welcome in, Clever, welcome in. Unfortunately. But I make it do, and I'm keeping on top of my studies, and I'm actually ahead of them right now, so that's really good. Lurking, no worries, Clever. Enjoy. I hope we'll probably get into the reading in a little bit. We'll just do some chatting. I feel bad for anyone who's like looking for ASMR and comes in and it's like, this guy is not doing ASMR at all in any fashion. But yeah, so if I'm like reading it all and I suddenly go like, or like you hear some kind of like pain sound, like it's nothing to worry about. Don't worry. I'm making sure I'm nice and loose. Excuse me. But as I said, I didn't stream yesterday. I didn't stream Friday. I didn't stream yesterday, but that's because I was actually on another person's stream. I was on my friend Diamandis's celebration 500, 500, and actually, you know what? I'll do something real quick, just for anyone. Oh wait, no, hang on. It has to be like this. Astro Part 6, and then we're also going to do it for Diamandis. So Diamandis was the person whose stream I was on. I was on there for like a good couple of hours just chatting away to him and so on. And Astro came in, or Parsecs. I don't know, because I look at your name and I see Astro. So even though I've always referred to you as Parsecs, I read Astro first. The old Senran title. Oh. I'm guessing that's not something you've done in a while. I know I made a mistake with naming on Twitch. I think you have to wait like a month or two, isn't it? Or like 3 months to change your name or something. Because I was worried I made a mistake. But like, if you can't say my name, that's your fault. But I was on Daya's stream, both Friday night and Saturday night. If you guys want to go check that out, I would highly recommend. Dai is a lovely guy, and he recently reached 500 followers. I think for me, one of the highlights was sometimes he does shower. He'll have a shower in the middle of a stream. Like, you can hear it. It's kind of weird, but Daya does what Daya does. And but I was in the call at the moment, so he had his showering like image up, and I was just in the background as a Discord like notification, and it was like I was watching him shower. And then I haven't checked it yet. I have to go check it later when he finishes streaming, and I can look at the VODs. But I'm gonna have to check because we sang Barbie Girl together He did Barbie and I did Ken, but I couldn't listen to it through excuse me, through Twitch. So because it's slightly delayed, so I had to listen through Discord, but I couldn't hear him through Discord properly. I can't believe I missed the Barbie girl sing along. I might post it. I might try and clip it or find where it is on his stream and then post it to like put out a tweet about it. So I'll let people know that it happened. Um, and then me and Son also turned his stream into a. Is this the Femboy Central channel where I find Anglo femboys to it at? I don't know what it at means, but no. The Femboy channel is down the hall and to the left. Shoes channel would probably be a good place to check out. Shoe please no. Well, for one, Tuete, I'm not Anglo. I'm Irish, and I'm not a femboy either. Don't get I've had this happen before. Don't get started on how this looks like a dress. It's not a dress. It's a lena. It's like a tunic. What's the difference? They're two very different ethnic groups. Anglos are Brittonic, or yeah, Brittonic Gaels, or not Gaels. Sorry, Celt, and Irish are a branch, probably the main branch of the Goidelics. The lena does kind of slay, to be fair. It does, doesn't it? Yeah. But is a skirt? No, no, it's not a skirt. A skirt would it, like just goes around the waist. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that was a fun old time with singing in the shower with Daya. And then Son came along, Son Albionus, and we turned Daya's stream into like a nerd session where we talked about philosophy and history for about fucking like 2 hours. I actually felt bad for Daya because I was constantly like, Daya, if we start like if we're boring you or like we're ruining your stream, please just say. But I think Daya was probably happy to have, because he's been streaming so much. He's been streaming like 8 hours a day, for 3 days in a row. It's mad. I don't know how someone does that, but he was actually. That reminds me, I'm going to turn off my ads so that they don't start up in an hour or two. But yeah, I'm sure he was grateful to have some people in there who were kind of just giving him a little bit of a break. At times I thought he fell asleep. Is a skirt shirt then? No. It's just like a long shirt. Just like it's a long tunic with long sleeves, and long big drapey sleeves. But I will have more clothing for my official model, which I've gotten some more stuff back on, and it's looking mighty fine, might I say. I'm gonna have like an ironer, which I can only describe as like a waistcoat with sleeves that can be tied to the wrist or can be flowed freely. It's kind of difficult to explain. And I'll also have what's known as a brat or a cloak. Brat is the Irish term for it. And that's a big cool thing. And I'll also have a new small waist. Well, yes, it's like, I mean, like thin waist with wide shoulders. That's like the average. Like that's a good look. The inverted triangle. I should maybe someday I'll commission you to it. The type of waist the Dorito body. Welcome in, D. As you can see from your name, you got an anonymous person dropped a subscription gift. So whoever that was, thank you very much. They would certainly diet for it. I thought you were making I thought you were making like a pun, like, oh, they would die for it. Oh, that's a cute emo. Wait, is that yours, D? Oh, it is. I like the heart. I like the orange heart. I didn't intend for it. Well, I caught it unintentionally. Oh, I didn't mean to pin How do I get rid of this? There we go. Wait, what? Okay, I kind of messed up a little bit. I Oopsie. I thought I would just delete the pinned message. It was a good pun. I know, unintentional pun. I got modded. No worries. I'm actually setting up my because Toete was asking me about it. I'm setting up my Discord soon. I just need to put in some rules, particularly because Toete will be there, so I need to make sure that that he's under control. But I should have that up soon. I do just need to put in like a welcome thing, figure out how like the bots work. Toei, please behave. I'm gonna put in a specific rule purely for you. The rest will be fairly basic. You could never control a goblin. There's some ways to control a goblin. Let them be free. No, you have to be stern with a goblin. Whack it if it fucking acts up. It's my goblin energy. I'm sorry, I was born this way. Well, I'll beat it out of you. but but yeah, for those of you who didn't hear, I am a little bit sore. I pinched a nerve in my neck or did something to it anyway. So if you hear me, those of you who weren't here, if you hear me kind of go, or, and I point, that's all it is. It's starting to get better anyway. But we've been chatting for a little bit, so I think let me just make sure of something. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Why is this not working? Hang on. Okay, all good. We will now. I'm gonna lower my voice, and we can begin the reading. You can, of course, interject anytime you want. Now, we were last time we left off, we were looking at the topic of qualia. Qualia being the subjective experiences of things that seem to be inexplicable, or supposedly inexplicable, based on the pure physical reality. So, the orange glow of the fire behind me, there's certain reasons for why that is, but the way we experience it is not something that we can really know. The subjective experience of what it is to see that fire or to hear my voice isn't something that, supposedly anyway, we can, we can look at the fire and feel the heat. But what does this heat feel like for you or for me? It feels a certain way for you and a certain way for me, but you have no way of knowing what that subjective experience feels like. And there's other aspects of qualia that supposedly make it show that the mind is in some way material. But many of the naturalist philosophers have argued that that's not the case. And there's various different topics that have been discussed. So we looked through things like the inverted spectrum, which essentially argued that, a color, for instance, the way I perceive red, might be what you perceive to be blue, but we both just call it red. And vice versa. Is this a materialist versus dualist argument? Essentially, yes. I mean that's what we're talking about at all times during this. We're going through the dualist argument of the mind, and we've been looking at some critiques of it as well. So we've been looking at primarily this has been giving dualist arguments, and then the critiques of the materialist against it. We also looked at other areas like the Chinese nation argument, which talked about, replacing neurons with people to perform the same actions of the neurons, billions and billions of them, and arguing would the same people doing the exact same sort of operation as the neurons do, just changing the China brain. It's a little bit of a weird one, to be quite honest. It's a couple of pages, so I won't reiterate it. But I'll try and find a. Where is it? I'm sure there's a. If I look at the back of the book, because it's a little bit difficult to explain. There should be a quick. Oh, here's chi. So nope. Ah, come on. Is it in T? Perhaps the. Hmm. That's annoying. It basically made you imagine a situation where a group of scientists are able to take your neurons and hang them up, and so that each neuron is kind of separated, and then everything works exactly the same. Now this is all science fiction, but we're just conceiving of it for the argument's sake. And then we replace each of the neuron brains with someone holding a radio, and they perform the exact same task as the neuron, where instead of sending an electrical signal, they send a radio signal. And we keep doing this such that the brain and supposedly the mind would be able to function exactly the same. There would be no difference. The question would be, if you keep doing this, at what point does the mind supposedly stop? Or would having millions or billions of people sending radio signals also create a mind? If it would, then perhaps the materialist is correct in the sense that the mind is just brain processes that could be instantiated in any other thing, assuming the correct structure. If it wouldn't create a mind, well, we have an issue there. We also looked at the zombie argument, which essentially talked about metaphysical zombies. If that can happen, then it then is an argument for materialism, but that doesn't necessarily rule out dualism. It just suggests, it's sort of like that is true in the sense that and the person who coined it, I believe, what was his name again? He essentially argued that that seems ridiculous that a group of people, millions of people doing such, would create a consciousness and they would all be a part of that consciousness. Seems ridiculous. But the dualist or the materialist does have various arguments against it. Usually I take a quick skim read of topics beforehand, but I was rushing a little bit. But if we have time, I might just go back to that because it is a very interesting topic. Also looked at metaphysical or philosophical zombies, those who could act and talk and do things exactly the same as us, but have no kind of experience, no subjective qualia. They're just essentially automatons. But we're going to continue with the knowledge argument. The zombie argument tries to show that physical reality does not, on its own, add up to mental reality. A related argument, which reinforces this basic idea, tries to show that knowledge of physical reality does not on its own add up to knowledge of mental reality. It is accordingly generally known as the knowledge argument, and derives from the contemporary philosopher Frank Jackson. Jackson asks us to consider Mary, a neuroscientist living in the far future, where we have a complete knowledge of details of the structure and functioning of the nervous system. Mary is in the unique situation of having lived her entire life in a black and white room, interacting with the outside world via a black and white television monitor. I know this argument myself, it's a really, really interesting one. So she has never had any experience of color. We can imagine that she has always worn a suit that covers her entire body, and which has kept her from seeing the color of her skin and hair, etc. While in this room, she has come to master the science of the brain, and in particular, she has acquired a thorough knowledge of physics and the physiology of color perception. She has also never seen the color red herself, but she knows exactly what happens in the eyes, nervous system, and on the surface of the object whenever anyone does see red. She knows down to the last detail, that is to say, all the physical facts there are to know about the perception of colour. Now, let's imagine that one day Mary is allowed to leave the room, and upon her release she is shown a red apple in full living colour for the very first time. Will she learn anything from this experience? Surely she will. She will learn what it is like to see red. And what this shows, according to the argument, is that materialism is false. The reasoning is this. Materialism claims that the physical facts about perception and the like are all the facts there are. But Mary, hypothetically, knew all the physical facts there were to know about perception. The sorts of facts that could be written down in neuroscience textbooks or conveyed in letters, in lectures heard over the television monitor. Yet, she did not know all the facts there were to know about perception. She learned something new about it upon leaving the room. And you can't learn something you already knew. So what she learned must be a non-physical fact. In particular, knowledge about qualia, about what it's like to see red, for instance, must be knowledge about something non-physical. How does that rule out materialism? So I don't know if, just getting to the end of that, essentially what it says is Mary supposedly knows all there is to know about how the brain works and how it interacts with the perception of colour, how the eyes work, and everything there. But she has never seen the colour red herself, in this case. She steps out of the room and she sees a red apple or something red for the very first time, maybe a fire truck or a London bus. The question is, does she learn something new? If the answer is yes, she does, well, that can't be a material fact, because she supposedly knows all there is to know about materialism. But if that's the case, and she has learned a non-material fact, the experience of seeing red, well, that experience, that knowledge of seeing red, why can't that be a material fact? Because the conception is, and of course that is an argument I'm pretty sure he gets into in a moment, that argues that, well, if she did know everything there is to know about perception regarding the brain, then, it sort of argues like maybe that's just begging the question. It argues that if she knows everything there is to know, so the argument goes, like in terms of the material facts of the brain, but she's never experienced the color red, she still wouldn't know what it's like to experience red. But there can be an argument, just as you're doing, Tuete, that argues, well, if she does know everything there is to know about the brain, perhaps she would know what it is to experience red without experiencing it herself. So we'll get into that, I'm quite sure. The suggestion that knowledge of all the relevant physical facts cannot yield knowledge of all the facts about conscious experience has also been illustrated vividly in an example given by Thomas Nagel. Bats, Nagel notes, navigate via senses very different from our own, where we rely chiefly on vision and hearing, and they use a kind of sonar or echolocation, putting together a sensory map of the external world by emitting shrieks and then registering the sound waves that bounce back to them and from the objects in their immediate environment. The experiences bats have in perceiving the world in this way must be radically dissimilar to ours. Scientific investigation into the structure and functioning of a bat's nervous system may well give us insight into the mechanics underlying its perceptions, but the nature of the perceptual experiences themselves, what it is like to be a bat, cannot be revealed by such inquiry, or so Nagel argues. For science gives us only the objective, third-person facts about any phenomenon, leaving aside any aspect tied to a particular point of view. But it is only from the particular, subjective first-person point of view of a bat that a bat's experiences can be understood. Materialistic scientific accounts must necessarily be inadequate to capture all the facts about a bat's consciousness, or any consciousness for that matter. One response, sometimes made to arguments like this, is that they simply assume that future neuron science won't be able to explain all there is to explain about conscious experiences. How can we know for sure that Mary would know what it's like to see red, simply from having mastered the material in her textbooks, while in the black and white room? So materialism is false because feelings. Well, sort of, yeah. I mean, that's the problem of qualia. The question is, the question isn't, oh, well, I can feel pain. We can argue, well, you can definitely say, like, oh, you feel pain because of this and this and this, of these nerves. I'm feeling pain right now in my shoulder, or, well, my neck, really. And that's because of a trapped nerve, and there's a material explanation for that. But my subjective experience of what that pain feels like, supposedly, isn't something that you could be able to see. You could see all the firings in the neurons and the way the nerves are doing their thing, but you would never be able to experience or see that experience that I'm having subjectively, is the argument. Well, the most basic argument. It's the qualitative aspect of experience that is difficult for physical science to explain. Supposedly, anyway. But we just got kind of an introduction there as to how it may be argued against it. So how can we know for sure that Mary wouldn't know what it's like to see red, simply from having mastered the material in her textbooks, while in the black and white room? There are two problems with this suggestion. The first is that it seems intuitively implausible. Any facts the neuroscientists of the future are likely to discover are bound to be facts of the same general sort they already know. Facts about how neurons are wired, or about which biomechanical substances are involved in which processes. It is hard to see how any further knowledge of this sort, of yet more objective third-person phenomena, could reveal the subjective first-person facts about what it is like to experience red, or to get about by echolocation. There is just a basic and straightforward conceptual difference between the former sort of fact and the latter. The second problem is that the suggestion at hand seems inevitably beset by the same indeterminacy that plagues some versions of physicalism, as we saw in the previous chapter. What of the way neuroscientists of the future explain conscious experience is by positing non-physical properties. This would vindicate the knowledge argument rather than undermine it. Yet there is nothing about the current course of neuroscience that can reasonably lead us to expect any other way in which it might explain consciousness. I don't think this is the best argument against materialism, to be honest. Which, the knowledge arguments? Or just like the general qualia? Generally appealing to qualia. More formidable responses to the knowledge argument usually proceed by conceding that there is a sense in which Mary would learn something upon leaving the room, even though she's mastered the neuroscience of the future. The strategy is then to argue that what she learns can rightly be understood, be seen, not is then to argue that what she sees can, when rightly understood, be seen not to genuinely threaten materialism. Qualia in general. That's it. I guess I'll continue reading, but if you'd like to expand on that, Toete, that would be very interesting. Yeah, because I think what we're getting into here is we're getting into probably some of the arguments or some of the things that you're thinking about right here, or at least maybe similar ideas. I hope that like you're kind of like maybe some of the arguments that you're seeing are like, oh yeah, that's kind of what I was going for. Paul Churchland argues that on leaving the room, Mary would not actually learn any new facts. Rather, she would just learn, in a new way, facts she already knew. So since she already knew all the physical facts, and there are no new facts, non-physical or otherwise, she learns after leaving the room. The conclusion that the physical facts cannot be all the facts there are is blocked. Churchland elaborates upon this suggestion by appealing to Russell's famous distinction between knowledge by acquaintance, and knowledge by description. You might know about giraffes only by descriptions you've heard or read in a book, but you might someday know about them by becoming directly acquainted with them in perceptual experience. Similarly, Mary, while still in the room, knew all the facts about the experience of Red only by description, and then becomes directly acquainted with those very same facts upon leaving the room. One possible objection to this argument is that it seems implausible to suggest that Mary doesn't learn a new fact on leaving the room. Surely the fact that red looks like this, where this refers to the immediate sensation she has of the color, is a fact she did not know before leaving the room, but learns afterwards. Another problem is that the Russellian distinction Churchland appeals to is not as philosophically neutral as it might appear. Russell himself held that all we really know by acquaintance are not external physical objects like giraffes, but rather what philosophers these days would call the subjective qualia we normally suppose to have been the subjective qualia we normally suppose to have been produced by such external objects. The external physical world in its totality is something we know only indirectly, by description. This goes hand in hand with the sort of indirect realist theory of perception discussed in Chapter 1, of which Russell was a proponent, as is Jackson for that matter. So indirect realism is basically the idea that the outside world that we experience is real, but we never have any direct contact with it. We never experience it truly. So you guys hearing my voice or hearing whatever, you guys aren't hearing directly my voice. Rather, you're hearing it indirectly through however many processes in the it takes to get from my voice, the real world of my voice, to your perception of it. You're only ever experiencing your perception of my voice. It also raises the question of precisely what these qualia are with which we are directly acquainted. Jackson and Russell take them to be irreducible to the sorts of properties revealed by physical science, properties which, unlike qualia, we cannot know by acquaintance. So to appeal to Russell's conception of knowledge by acquaintance can hardly help Churchland in rebuting an argument against materialism. But to reject Russell's conception and insist instead that knowledge by acquaintance does not involve knowledge of non-physical qualia would be to beg the question. Either way, it seems that Churchland's response to Jackson's argument fails. Another response is put forward by David Lewis, who, like Churchland, denies that what Mary learns is a fact she didn't know before. Rather, the knowledge she gets is knowledge of new abilities, knowledge of how to do something rather than knowledge that something is the case, and in particular, knowledge of how to recognize red objects, the ability to imagine red, and so forth. But this reply seems to have problems parallel to those undermining Churchland. For one thing, it seems implausible to assert that Mary learns no new fact, since knowledge that red looks like this, referring to a subjective sensation, is knowledge of a new fact. For another, the distinction Lewis appeals to is itself not necessarily a neutral one. Mary may well gain new abilities or knowledge upon leaving the room, but it is arguable that some of those abilities are gained only because she learns new facts. Mary now has the ability to imagine what red looks like, but only because she also has learned the fact that red looks like this. Robert Van Gulik presents a somewhat technical reply to Jackson's argument. He claims that what Mary gains is knowledge of a new concept, and that if she also learns new propositions, this is so only on a fine-grained scheme. Oh god, okay, yes, this is technical. Christ. I read a little bit ahead as I was reading. I just kind of glanced my eyes down. I'm going to take this slowly. He claims that what Mary gains is knowledge of a new concept, and that if she also learns new propositions, this is so only on a fine-grained scheme of individuating or distinguishing between propositions. What this means can best be explained by example. Whether the proposition that water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit and the proposition that H2O freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit are the same proposition depends on whether we individuate propositions in a fine or coarse-grained mode. A fine-grained mode would be one which took account of the fact that water and H2O are associated with different concepts, even though they refer to the same substance, and thus would count these propositions as distinct. So it's getting kind of more focused, fine-grained, like you're going with a fine-tooth comb. Coarse... Ooh, where is it? Oh no, I lost it. A coarse-grained mode would ignore the difference in concepts, and since water and H2O refer to the same substance, count them as identical. So I'm guessing what we're saying here is like the way that they're different in concept is water refers to, well, water, the thing that we drink, the thing that flows, the thing that I just took a sip of. But H2O has the concept as well of the hydrogen and oxygen being combined in a certain ratio. So there's slightly different concepts. Even though they refer to the same substance, it's looking at it from two different viewpoints, I guess, is kind of the argument of fine versus coarse. While coarse does away with that and just sees they're referring to the same substance. Similarly, the proposition that 5 plus 7 equals 12 and the proposition that 38 is the square root of 1444, please don't bring maths into this, are the same proposition on a coarse-grained mode of individuating propositions, one that takes account only of the fact that these mathematical propositions being necessarily true, both have exactly the same truth value in every possible world. I'm guessing what he says here, what he's saying here is that 5 plus 7 equals 12, and the square root, 38 being the square root of 1444, they're both correct, and in no possible world could they not be correct. So that's like, they're not saying that they're the same thing from a fine grain, but from a coarse, it's like saying that 5 plus 5 equals 10, and 10 plus 10 equals 20. They're the same, they're on a coarse-grained perspective. They're both just true propositions relating to the truth value of them. I don't, the book brought up maths, Haru, but welcome in, Haru, welcome in. I hope you're well. Drown, check, and stretch. Thank you. Oh. I lost my normal bottle of water, so I have to use like one of the ones you have to. Who is the author of this book, if I may? Well, let me stretch for a moment. Oh, hang on. My phone is going off. Excuse me. With Christmas coming up, there's a lot of discussion over presents. Hang on, my headphones. How did it get behind my chair? I just took my. Okay, hang on. What have I done? Why is my headphone? Oh, it's caught on the thing. I will be back in a moment. Hang on. Let me figure this out. Okay. I'm back. I'm back. I'm sorry for anyone who's listening to ASMR. I got kind of annoyed. My headphone wire was wrapped around in a lot of weird ways. But yeah, but Tornkite, the author of this book, is a man by the name of Edward Fesser. He is a theologian, well, a philosopher. I don't know if you can call him a theologian, but his area is definitely of theology. Well, I guess yeah. I don't know if theologian has some specific, you know, reference. But I guess you could call him a theologian. He's specifically a Thomist, so he does take the perspective of the mind is material, but he would disagree with the dualist in this case, the Descartes dualist, and he does have some interesting chapters at the very end. He does have some interesting chapters at the very end where he discusses the difference between, materialism, the materialist view, Descartes dualism, or Cartesian dualism, and then the Thomistic perspective on the mind and body, how it's I was wondering, was it the same book I had read by P. Mandic? I haven't read that book, unfortunately. I don't recognize the name, but it sounds interesting. I have one that I have quite a few books that I want to read. Actually, I recently got a new bookshelf. Well, a couple of weeks ago. I wonder, should I post an image of it on Twitter? Or will people be like, I recognize that bookshelf. I'll see you soon. You can tell he is a theologian. He has some other books that I've really enjoyed. P. Mandic. Totally normal. In no way funny name. But welcome in, Tornkite. Thank you for joining us, and welcome in, Haru. I hope you're all doing well. Is that Tuppo? Is that Tuppo's? It is. Oh, it's him thinking. I thought it was him with like a long Chinese mustache for some reason. You know those really long ones that like stick out like the Fu Manchus. I thought that was what it was for some reason. But I see it's him thinking. One that takes account only of the fact that these mathematical propositions, being necessarily true, both have exactly the same truth value in every possible world, but they are different propositions on a fine-grained scheme, one that takes account of the different concepts associated with 5 plus 7 equals 12, 38, square root, and 1444. Each of those things that I kind of said specifically had kind of double up. What you call them again? Like quotation marks. That's the word I was looking for. In the first example, it is clear that even if we count the propositions as different, the fact they refer to is the same. Water is identical to H2O, so the fact that water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit is the same fact as the fact that H2O freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Similarly, Van Gulik suggests, even if Mary, having learned a new concept after leaving the room, is thereby able to learn a new proposition, it would not follow that the fact that proposition describes is a fact she didn't already know. It would not follow that the fact that proposition describes is a fact she didn't already know. Perhaps it is a physical fact of the same sort she already knew while in that room. As with the other responses to the knowledge argument, one could object to this one, that it seems intuitively implausible. The fact that red looks like this, where this refers to an immediate sensation, seems obviously to be different from the fact seems to be a different fact than the fact that Mary is in a brain state of type B or whatever. Hang on, let me read that again because I'm not too sure I followed what he was saying. As with the other responses to the knowledge argument, one could object to this one that it seems intuitively implausible. The fact that red looks like this, where this refers to an immediate sensation, seems obviously to be a different fact than the fact that Mary is in a brain type state of type B, or whatever. Of course, Van Gulik might suggest that the way things might seem might nevertheless in this case be wrong. It might also seem to be someone ignorant of chemistry. That the fact that water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit is a different fact from the fact that H2O freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, even though they are in reality the same. But it isn't clear that this suggestion will work. I'll be lurking. Take care, bro. Let me know when you make the server to terrorize you. Oh no. Someday I'll commission you to make some like good anatomy art. For those of you who don't know, Tuete is a very impressive artist who spends a lot of time on anatomy. It's very impressive, not gonna lie. But he's also a bit of a troll. He's a bit of a gobbly troll. After all, few people would find it a satisfactory defense of the highly dubious claim that the fact 5 plus 7 equals 12 is the same fact as the fact that 38 is the square root of 1444. In the case of this mathematical example, we surely have two different facts, not just two different fine-grained propositions. Indeed, it is partly our sense that this is so that leads us to see the need for a fine-grained mode of individuating propositions in the first place. We don't suppose that this is necessarily... excuse me. I keep stumbling over words. I apologize. We don't suppose this is necessary merely in order to take account of differences in concepts, but also because the propositions of which concepts are constituents often seem, as in the mathematical example, to be about different facts. But the suggestion that the facts that Mary learns on leaving the room are the very same facts as those she knew before seems just as intuitively implausible as the suggestion that the mathematical facts in our example are the same. And if such an implausibility is, in the one case itself, precisely what leads us to accept a more fine-grained account of mathematical propositions, so that it would be absurd to suppose that one could defend the claim that the mathematical facts in question are the same by appealing to a fine-grained account, then it would be equally absurd and implausible to suppose that one could refute the knowledge argument by a parallel appeal to a fine-grained scheme of individuating propositions. In other words, it is, in part, precisely because it seems so intuitively plausible that facts about qualia and physical facts are just different sorts of facts, that we find a fine-grained mode of individuating propositions about them to be necessary in the first place. So it won't do to appeal to such a mode in order to defend the claim that they aren't different. So I will say, that was a particularly technical argument and response and counter argument. Excuse me. So I wouldn't be surprised if people didn't follow it. I kind of struggled to follow it at times as well. There's definitely aspects. I think even though it's a beginner's guide, and sometimes I suppose a philosopher has to kind of throw their hat in the air. Or not their hat in the air, that seems like a thing that they do in Celebration. Kind of throw their hands up in the air and just be like, yep, look, this is tough, this is quite technical, don't worry about it. It's something you could read about a bit more to try and understand it. Subjectivity. Most of the criticisms of the knowledge argument are more or less along the same lines, and would therefore be open to similar objections. But there is another possible reply, suggested by what was said earlier about the inverted spectrum scenario, which may be more formidable. Suppose that each color can indeed be given a precise location in color space, and thus analyzed in terms of its relations to every other color. It then seems possible, at least in principle, that one might be able to deduce the nature of one color from its relations to others. Consider a simple example involving three very close shades of blue: A, B, and C, where A is the lightest, C the darkest, and B the indeterminate, or the intermediate. It is certainly plausible that someone who had only ever experienced A and C would be able to figure out what it would be like to experience B by simply considering its relations to A and C, the relations being darker than and lighter than. By extension, it may also be plausible to suggest that someone who had never seen orange could, in principle, determine what it would be like to experience it if he or she had experienced red and yellow. One could deduce the appearance of orange from it being similar to and intermediate between these other colors. Why not conclude then that someone who had at least some visual experience of black and white, of grey as intermediate between them, of light and dark, might in principle be capable of deducing what the various colors looked like on a sufficiently detailed description of their relations? Why not conclude in particular that Mary, who studied the theory of color and the structure of color space, would have been able to, in principle, to deduce what it would be like to experience red while still in the room, so that she would in fact not have learned anything new when leaving it? This sort of strategy could, in theory, be extended to all qualia: auditory, tactile, olfactory, and gustatory. What does gustatory mean? Seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling. Does what? That's a new word to me. I felt like I would have looked that up. Maybe I just glanced over it. Gustatory. Oh, it's taste. Ah, okay. Gustatory is in relation to taste. I guess tastatory sounds kind of weird. This sort of strategy could in theory be extended to all qualia: auditory, tactile, olfactory, and gustatory, as well as visual, which could be described in terms of their relations to other qualia of the same sort, and even their relations to qualia of different sorts: warmth, coolness, hardness, softness, sharpness, smoothness, seem to be qualities applicable to many different kinds of qualia, so that, to some extent at least, visual qualia can be described in terms of their similarity relations to auditory qualia, auditory qualia in terms of their similarity relations to tactile qualia, and so forth. Rudolf Carnap, 1891 to 1970, attempted just such a detailed and systematic analysis of all qualia in terms of their relations to each other, which relations he took to be grounded ultimately in the basic relation of recollection of similarity. Recollection, that's an interesting. Recollection is like it reminds me of the recollection argument of Plato. If such an analysis could be carried out completely, then it is arguable that anyone thoroughly familiar with it could, on the basis of even the most limited sensory experience, determine what it would be like to have any experience that he or she has never in fact had. This approach seems promising, though it would take a great deal of argument, convincingly, to defend it. But even if successful, the critic of materialism could hold that this strategy would not undermine the deeper truth captured by the knowledge argument in Nagel's version more than in Jackson's. The truth is arguably just this: while Mary might, at least in principle, to be able to deduce from what she knows while still in the room what it is like to experience red, she would not be able to deduce from it why it is like anything at all. The real mystery is not that red feels specifically like this rather than that. It is that it has any feel in the first place. It reminds me of Alexander Usyk, who is a boxer, who I think coming up to a fight or right after a fight, it might have been a press conference. He was asked how he feels uh, leading up to the fight, and he's from Ukraine, so he doesn't speak English all that well. And he said, "I am feel, I am very feel." Nagel captures the problem by noting that it is the fact that there is something it is like to be conscious that makes consciousness so difficult to account for in purely material terms. The zombie argument captures it by suggesting that it is metaphysically possible for there to be creatures physically identical to us, but without consciousness. Creatures who exhibit exactly the same behavior, and thus, for example, make exactly the same discriminations between red and other colours, but who do not experience red, for whom there is nothing it is like to discriminate red from other colours. That there is something it is like for us to experience, it would seem to be a further fact above us, over and above the physical ones. I might read that again because that's an interesting area. The zombie argument captures it by suggesting that it is metaphysically possible for there to be creatures physically identical to us but without consciousness. Creatures who exhibit exactly the same behavior, and thus, for example, make exactly the same discriminations between red and other colours, but who do not experience red, for whom there is nothing it is like to discriminate red from other colours. That there is something it is like for us to experience it, would seem to be a further fact about us, over and above the physical ones. This goes hand in hand with Nagel's point that a conscious being is one with a first-person point of view on the world, who is a locus of subjectivity. Consciousness of what an experience is like is always consciousness of what it is like for me, for a subject of experience, and for Mary to deduce what experiencing red would be like from its similarity relations to other experiences presupposes that she is a conscious subject for whom it would be similar. One might think to deflate this notion of subjectivity by suggesting that lots of purely physical things have points of view on the world as well. A camera, for instance, which can photograph only what is in front of it, its images produced by reflecting its particular point of view, so that it shouldn't be so mysterious why we, with our specific sensory organs and physical limitations, should have points of view too. But such a suggestion would seem fallacious. A camera is just a mechanism sensitive to light, such that it can be used to generate patterns on film that correspond to the light patterns reflected by physical objects. It has no literal point of view, for it doesn't view anything in the first place in the sense in which we do. It is we who understand the pictures the camera produces to have significance. Indeed, it is we who regard them as pictures rather than splotches of chemicals on paper. It is also true that the particular point of view any of us occupies is, like the camera, limited by our specific position in space and the physical constraints imposed by the structure of the human body. But to make a point to make a point that parallels the point made above about the experience of seeing red, it is not our having this or that particular point of view that is claimed to be difficult or impossible to explain in materialistic terms. It is rather our having any point of view at all that is mysterious. It kind of reminds me of a video I watched before by I think he's like a mathematics comedian. I can't remember his name. He's had a couple of good videos. I remember I watched his video on the Dream speedrunning cheating scandal, where he explained the maths behind it, as well as like just like probability in general. He's very good. I remember he did something before where he showed how like images. So he had an image that he took of himself. He was talking about Excel or something, and he was explaining how when you use like conditional formatting and you have all the colors of all the cells different colors. He was arguing that that's just what photos are, and he showed that if you zoomed in on this picture that was on a digital screen, if you zoomed in enough, on this picture that he took of himself holding his own book because he was shilling his book, what you would see is you would see a bunch of little squares that are colored in certain ways. And they tend to be colored in red, green, blue, or various shades. And that's all that picture is, just a bunch of little colors. And it kind of reminds me of this idea that, like, purely individually, that image is literally of nothing in terms of, like, if we were to break it down to its most basic components. But it's we, or experience, or point of view of the image and of the things that makes up that that gives meaning to it, that makes it a photo of him. If that makes sense. I'm trying to relate it to the various things. In the dualist's view, that science, at least as understood by materialists, cannot in principle solve this mystery seems to follow necessarily from the very nature of scientific explanation. It is not a matter of our not yet having gathered all the relevant and neurological evidence or hit upon the right theory. For, as noted in the last chapter, the method of modern scientific explanation has historically been precisely to carve off and ignore the subjective observer relative aspect of any phenomenon it investigates, and identify such phenomena exclusively with the objective third-person residue which remains. We can take the explanations of temperature as a paradigm. A hoary philosophical example illustrates the subjectivity of temperature considered as a felt experience. Someone who puts his or her right hand in a bucket of ice-cold water and his or her left in a bucket of hot water, and then puts both in a bucket of lukewarm water, will find that the lukewarm water feels warm to the right hand and cold to the left. We can also imagine extraterrestrials who would feel what we would call coolness when putting their hands, or tentacles, in hot water, and heat when putting them in ice-cold water. If by heat and cold we mean the subjective sensations of or feelings produced by hot and cold objects, there is no objective fact about whether a particular object is hot or cold. Science thus ignores subjective feelings and instead defines or redefines heat and cold exclusively in terms of the objective, mind-independent physical facts, which, in us anyway, cause the relevant sensations. Facts about mean molecular kinetic energy. But if the method of science is in every case to strip away the subjective appearance a phenomena exhibits, and, as it were, push it into the mind, it seems obvious that the same procedure cannot in principle be applied to an explanation of the mind itself. For the mind just is, in part, the collection of the subjective appearances of the things it experiences. The subjective element cannot in this case be stripped away, and without thereby stripping away and ignoring the very phenomenon to be explained, in which case it hasn't really explained anything at all. Subjectivity, comprising the phenomena of being present to an experiencing subject, of being directly accessible only from the point of view of that subject, and of being capable of existing in experience, even when, as in dreams or hallucinations, an apparent objective correlate of the experience does not exist, thus appears to be the essential core to the concept of qualia, and the feature that is most plausibly inexplicable in physical terms. Philosophers often attribute other supposedly problematic features to qualia, such as ineffability and intrinsicality, but to a very great extent these appear to be reducible to or parasitic upon subjectivity. For example, qualia seems ineffable only because our language is typically used to communicate thoughts about objective public phenomena, and words are typically learned by reference to such phenomena. Communicating thoughts about private and subjective phenomena thus seems difficult or impossible. To the extent that qualia are ineffable, this is just a consequence of their being subjective. Qualia are also claimed to be intrinsic in the sense of not being analyzable in terms of their relations to other things. For example, in terms of the causal relations, functionalism claims all mental phenomena can be analyzed in terms of. For, as it was suggested by the zombie argument, it seems logically possible for any such set of causal relations to exist without qualia. But here too, qualia are not analyzable into relations instantiated in objective third-person phenomena, causal relations being firing patterns in clumps of neurons, say, that they seem to be intrinsic. Let me read that again. But here too, subjectivity seems to be what's really at issue. It is because qualia are not analyzable into relations instantiated in objective third-person phenomena, causal relations between firing patterns in clumps of neurons, say, that they seem to be intrinsic. Yet this leaves open that they may be analyzable into subjective first-person similarity relations of the sort Carnap, Clark, and Hardin have tried to elucidate. That they may well, in this sense, be both irreducibly subjective and yet non-intrinsic. Indeed, it is arguable that it is precisely because they are so analyzable that we can communicate about them despite their subjectivity, so that they are not ineffable in the strict sense. If we were not able to describe and convey to one another the systematic similarities and differences between qualia, we would not be able to know, as we surely do know, that we are all talking about the same phenomena when we discuss qualia and argue about whether materialism can account for them. Our knowledge of the relational structure of qualia makes our claims about them cognitively meaningful and rationally accessible, despite the fact that the relations comprising the structure are directly knowable only from the subjective first-person point of view. Welcome back, Clever, welcome back. It seems arguable that the key difference between qualia on the one hand and such physical phenomena as functional organization, neurophysiology, and behavior on the other is that the former are irreducibly subjective, private, and first-person in character, while the latter are inherently objective, publicly accessible, and third-person. The dualist concludes that since the two sorts of phenomena have such irreconcilable essential properties, the former cannot be accounted for in terms of the latter, in which case materialism, which claims that everything real is explicable in terms of objective, third-person physical phenomena, must be false. Now we get into the topic of property dualism. Interestingly, most of the philosophers typically associated with the sorts of arguments surveyed in this chapter are, though critics of mainstream materialism, nevertheless not Cartesian dualists. Some of them endorse a agnostic materialism as a fallback position. Joseph Levine, for example, suggests that what such arguments really prove is at most, that there is an explanatory gap between the physical and the mental, that we do not understand how materialism can be true, but that this doesn't show that it isn't true. I think that was kind of like what Toete was talking about. These arguments, they may point that there's issues, but, it doesn't necessarily prove that it isn't true. Colin McGinn adds that it might simply be that evolution has not given us the conceptual resources fully to grasp the manner in which material processes generate mental ones. But such moves arguably miss the point. If the argument of Chalmers, Jackson, Kripke et al. Work at all, they seem to prove that qualia are just not reducible to physical properties. Not that we can't understand how they are reducible. No one would think it's reasonable to reply to Gödel's arguments for his famous incompleteness theorems. I believe Gödel's incompleteness theorems refers to the philosophy of mathematics, and I'm not particularly knowledgeable there. By suggesting that perhaps we just don't understand how consistency of a formal system containing computable arithmetic is internally provable. Yep, see, I don't get what they're talking about there. Oh, my shoulder's at me a little bit. Let me let me stretch a little bit here. I'm just kind of. Oh, why is it caught so much there? I'm just moving my head left, right, up, down, and kind of around. It seems to be caught in a particular way. I'll do some more stretching proper later. Most philosophers sympathetic to the arguments in question opt instead for what has come to be known as property dualism, the view alluded to earlier when discussing the zombie argument, that there is, contrary to Cartesian substance dualism, only one kind of substance, material substance, but that there are also, contrary to materialism, two kinds of properties, physical and non-physical. In this view, the mind, considered as a substance, is indeed identical to the brain, but mental properties, or at least qualia, are not physical properties of the brain, but non-physical properties inhering in its physical substance. The advantage claimed for this view is that it can accommodate both the Cartesian dualist conviction that the mind is irreducible to matter and the materialist's insistence that mind is inseparable from matter. Property dualists also often take other mental phenomena, those which don't necessarily involve qualia or essentially involve qualia, to be susceptible of explanation in terms of materialistic functionalism in a way qualia are not. This is held to be true in particular of the propositional attitudes, belief, desire, hope, fear, so called because they involve a subject taking a certain attitude towards a proposition, such as the attitude of belief you take towards a proposition that it is raining when you believe that it is raining, or the attitude of hope you take towards the proposition that you will pass your exams when you hope you will pass your exams. The idea is that since these sorts of mental states are not necessarily associated with qualia, for you could believe that it is raining even if you aren't consciously entertaining the belief at the moment, there is no objection to be made to reducing them to physical states of the brain on the basis of arguments of the inverted spectrum, Chinese nation, zombie, or knowledge sort. Whether this suggestion is as plausible as property dualists generally take it to be is something we will explore in chapter 6 and 7. But it might seem to give the property dualist a significant advantage over the Cartesian dualist, where defending a broadly dualist view of the world is concerned. As we saw in chapter 2, the Cartesian dualist appears to have a difficult time explaining exactly how a non-physical substance could possibly interact with the body. Here, how, for example, your belief that it is raining can be what causes you to go get your umbrella becomes metaphysically mysterious. Epiphenomenalism looms, but the property dualist might appear to have avoided this problem. Your belief is, most property dualists would allow, a physical state of your brain, so there is no mystery about how it can have a causal influence on behavior. Even your perception that it is raining can, insofar as it involves having a propositional attitude, as much as a belief does, be identified with a physical process in your brain, so that there is no problem in explaining how it too can cause behavior. True, the perception, unlike many beliefs, may well be associated with certain qualia, such as the sensation of water droplets hitting one's arm, and these cannot be identified with physical properties in the brain. Indeed, it seems that qualia, unlike propositional attitudes, must at the end of the day be regarded as epiphenomenal, playing no role whatever in the production of behavior, since the behavior of a zombie would be exactly the same as that of those who have qualia. But as long as the perception itself is physical, this shouldn't matter. Your perception of the raindrops really does cause you to go get your umbrella, even if the qualia associated with it do not. In fact, however, it matters a great deal, and property dualism seems, if anything, to have a worse problem with epiphenomenalism than does Cartesian dualism. Recall that the Cartesian dualist who opts for epiphenomenalism seems to be committed to the absurd consequence that we cannot even so much as talk about our mental states, because if epiphenomenalism is true, those mental states have no effect at all upon our bodies, including our larynxes, tongues, and lips. So, just as a quick refresher, epiphenomenalism is the idea that the the mind is different from the brain, that the our thoughts and our mind, our kind of mental processes are immaterial, but they are solely and wholly dependent upon the brain, and they only arise due to the processes of the brain. So whatever happens in the brain in some way creates our mental thoughts and processes. And they are separate, they are different things, but the mental states or mind has no influence on the physical processes of the brain. They're epiphenomenal upon it. They kind of float over and above it, but have no. They're kind of created within it, within the brain processes. But as Daniel Dennett has pointed out, the property dualist seems committed to something even more absurd. The conclusion that we cannot even think about our mental states, or at least about our qualia. For if your beliefs, including your belief that you have qualia, are physical states of your brain, and qualia can have no effect whatsoever on anything physical, then whether you really have qualia has nothing to do with whether you believe you have them. The experience of pain you have in your back, or my neck for instance, has absolutely no connection to your belief that you have an experience of pain in your back. For being incapable of having any causal influence on the physical world, it cannot be what caused you to have beliefs about it. Indeed, it would seem also to follow that you can have no confidence that the pain even exists in the first place, for you would have exactly the same beliefs about it, whether it existed or not. Because that qualitative experience of pain, even if you have it, doesn't necessarily suggest that it should have no causal effect in the real world. In the material world, I should say. Property dualism thus appears to lead to a skepticism even more radical than that entailed by Descartes' evil spirit scenario. If property dualism is true, then you cannot even be certain that your own conscious experiences exist. You might be, for all you know, a zombie. Welcome in, next teacup. Take a nice seat by the fire and enjoy. I hope you're well. I hope everything's been going good for you. This is not only bizarre, it is incoherent. The whole point of property dualism is to insist that there are non-physical qualia. If the theory also entails that we can never know about that there are such qualia, then how or why are we even considering it? How can property dualists themselves so much as formulate their hypothesis? Fun next lore, I just moved across the USA. Ooh, nice one, nice one. I hope the move went well. I hope you didn't run into any issues. I know some people on here some tubas who moved places and they were constantly complaining that like it's just such a hassle moving everything. I still have my my PC box and the foam it came with, or not the foam, the styrofoam. It's literally a Gulf Coast state to a state bordering Canada, and yeah, it went really well. Oh, I get what you. Oh wow, so you traveled like north. That's I think anyway. Yeah, wouldn't that be? Yeah, that would be like very north. Right, like up across the U.S. But that's good to hear that the move went very well. No hiccups or anything, and nothing lost. Uh, I hope you enjoy your new place of living. That's an exciting little thing. Even though it's still in the same country, America is so big and culture are very much distinct across the areas. Chalmers attempts to deal with this problem by suggesting that the assumption that there must be a causal connection between the knower and what is known, through, though appropriate where knowledge of physical objects is concerned, is inappropriate for knowledge of qualia. The existence of a causal chain implies the possibility of error, since, as we saw in Chapter 1, it seems to entail a gap between the experience of the thing known and the thing itself, a gap between appearance and reality. It is at least possible that the normal causal chain connecting us to the thing experienced has been disrupted, so that the experience is misleading, as in a hallucination or deception by a Cartesian evil spirit. But knowledge of qualia, Chalmers says, is absolutely certain. Here there is no gap between appearance and reality, because the appearance, the way things seem, which is constituted by qualia themselves, is the real reality. Knowledge of qualia must therefore somehow be direct and unmediated by causal chains between them and our beliefs about them. The fact that they can have no causal influence on our beliefs thus does not, after all, entail that we can't think or talk about them. But an objection to this is that it seems question-begging, since whether our knowledge of qualia really is certain is part of what is at issue in Dennett's argument. Moreover, Chalmers' claim that there is no gap between appearance and reality where knowledge of qualia is concerned seems problematic, given the assumption he shares with other property dualists that propositional attitudes can, unlike qualia, be reduced to physical processes in the brain. For while there is a sense of appearance and seeming, which involve the having of qualia, a sense we can call the qualitative sense, there is also a sense that of these words, call it the cognitive sense, which does not, but instead involves only the having of certain beliefs. One might say, for example, that at first it seemed or appeared to him that Chalmers' arguments were sound, but on the surface, but on further reflection, he concluded that they were not. Here there need be no qualia present, but only a mistaken judgment or having of a false belief. But the having of beliefs and the making of judgments are, by Chalmers' own lights, identical with being in certain brain states, so that there is a sense in which even a zombie has beliefs, including false beliefs, and makes judgments, including mistakes in judgment. But in that case, it could seem or appear, even to a zombie, that it had qualia, even though by definition it does not. So there can be a gap between experience and reality, even where qualia is concerned. Dennett's challenge remains: how can property dualists so much as think about the qualia they say exist? How can they know that they aren't zombies? How many more pages? We're almost done. Chalmers' view seems to be that this sort of objection can be avoided by arguing that it is just in the very nature of having experience that one is justified in believing one has it, that there is a conceptual connection between having it and knowing one is having it. The evidence for my belief that I'm having the experience and the experience itself are the same thing. So I don't infer the existence of the experience from the evidence, but just know directly from the mere having of the evidence. But this seems merely to push the problem back a stage. For now the question is, how can one really know? How can one know one really has that evidence? The experience, in the first place, given that an experienceless zombie would also believe that it has it, and if it's read Chalmers, that there is a conceptual connection between having it and being justified in believing it does. Chalmers' claim seems to amount to the conditional. If you have a qualia, then you know you have them. Chalmers' claim seems to amount to the conditional. If you have a qualia, or if you have qualia, then you can know you have them. But that raises the question of how one can know the antecedent of this conditional, i.e., how can one know one does in fact have qualia? Chalmers' reply is, because it seems to me that I do, and its seeming that way is all the justification I need. But a zombie would believe the same thing. Quote, "But I have evidence the zombie doesn't have. My experience," Chalmers would retort. Yet the zombie believes that too, because it also seems to it, in the cognitive sense, that it has such evidence. Any response Chalmers gives to such questions would seem to invite further questions about whether he really has the evidence he thinks he does. His only possible reply can be to say that he has it because he seems to have it. But if he says that he seems to, in the cognitive sense of seems, then he's saying something even a zombie would believe. While if he says, even to himself, that he seems to in the qualitative sense of seems, then he's begging the question. For whether he has the qualia that this sense of seems presupposes is precisely what's at issue. Chalmers' reply to the sort of criticism raised by Dennett thus seems to fail. Property dualism would thus appear to lead to absurdity as long as it concedes to materialism the reducibility of the propositional attitudes. If instead it takes the attitudes to be, like qualia, irreducible to physical states of the brain, this absurdity can be avoided, for in that case your beliefs and judgments are as non-physical as your qualia are, and there is thus no barrier, at least of the usual mental to physical, epiphenomenalist sort, to your qualia being the causes of your beliefs about them. Phone just dropped from 20% to 2% while plugged in. Oh my god, that's concerning. That's a little issue. Might want to get your battery checked out. But interesting stuff though. No worries. Last lot. You'll be back for the last one. I think we're actually almost done with this this bit. It's not great. Yeah, it seems like it's a little bit of a struggle. But it should take this route. There just seems much less motivation for adopting property dualism rather than full-blown Cartesian substance dualism. It was precisely the concession of the materiality of propositional attitudes that seemed to allow the property dualist to make headway on the interaction problem, an advantage that is lost if that concession is revoked. And while taking at least beliefs, desires, and the like to be purely material underlines the plausibility of the existence of a distinct, non-physical mental substance, such plausibility would seem to be restored if all mental properties, beliefs, and desires, as much as qualia, are non-physical. Moreover, property dualism raises a puzzle of its own, namely that of explaining exactly how non-physical properties can inhere in a physical substance. So exactly how is it that the mental states that are created and inhere and kind of attach are created out of the mental processes? Property dualism, then, is arguably not a genuine advance over substance dualism, though some of the arguments of property dualists appear to pose a significant challenge to materialism, and thereby to advance the cause of dualism generally. Yet the materialist still has the interaction problem to wield against the dualist, along with the less paradoxical but still unsatisfactory form of epiphenomenalism that threatens even Cartesian dualism. Moreover, the materialist's last word about qualia has not yet been spoken. We've seen that the problem qualia pose for the materialist is, at bottom, the problem of accounting for the existence of a conscious subject, having a first-person point of view of the world. An adequate understanding of the qualia problem cannot be had, then, unless it is considered as part of the broader problem of the nature of consciousness itself. If consciousness in general can be explained in entirely materialistic terms, maybe a materialist account of qualia in particular would be possible after all, as a byproduct of this more general theory. That, at any rate, is the hope of a number of contemporary materialist philosophers. A look at the problem of consciousness must therefore be the next item on our agenda. And that would be what's leading us into Chapter 5, Consciousness. I think I might leave it there for the moment, but I really like the vibe of running into a random Scot in the woods, and he's like, yeah, come chill by my fire, oh, and also philosophy jump scare. Well, for one, not necessarily Scot, although I suppose if you called me a Scotty, Scoti. That would be accurate. Scoti being the Latin that was used for Irish people, I believe. But um, mm, mm. It's kind of, excuse me. Wait, you are Irish. Fuck. That I am. That I am. If you would have just added a I was like trying to remember. No worries, no worries. If I was Scottish, I would have been sounding a bit more like this. No, wait, that's not really Scottish. Guess wrong. No worries, no worries. Next. Oh, I'm not very good at accents, but like, hang on, let me. What's that emote clever? It looks like oh, they're crying. I'm very bad at placing accents, which makes it much harder. No worries. I find that people tend to like they'll either assume I'm in some way I'm one of the accents that are around Ireland and the UK. It's like they'll make some sort of like, wait, are you X, Y, and Z, and like, half the time they'll be correct. Although some people can hear my accent and just be like, "Yep, immediately I know you're in some way Irish." At least I didn't guess Brit. Yes, yes, that is true. Just taking a quick glance through Chapter 5, Consciousness, we'll be looking at things like eliminativism, which is quite interesting. I remember taking a look at that. Representationalism and higher order theories. So I'm kind of just reading like the topics that I kind of bolded. Russellian identity theory and neutral monism. Troubles with Russellianism. That's quite a long chapter. A more consistent Russellianism. Consciousness, intentionality, and subjectivity. Guessing that might be the last chapter then. Oh, yeah. Or the last topic of consciousness. Yeah. So, if I take a look here, consciousness is roughly about 20. So, just over 20 pages. So, I might even be able to knock out consciousness in one stream. But it would definitely be, I'd have to be reading for a good bit, I think. Oh wow, I've been live for about an hour and almost 2 hours. I'm surprised about that. It feels like I haven't been that live that long. But I hope you all enjoyed that reading. It was definitely I feel like in comparison to many of the other chapters, this particular topic or these few areas were quite detailed and technical. So don't worry. I mean, like I probably need to reread some of these stuff to properly follow. I find like even when you're reading slowly and you're kind of reading aloud. Well, actually no, I read aloud to help me better understand it because I find if I can break sentences down, they make more sense to me. But when I'm trying to like focus on how I'm reading it as well, it's something then that kind of takes a little bit of my mind away from the topic. But definitely got into some deeper philosophical arguments. But it seems we're going to be stepping a little bit away from the topic of just qualia and stuff, and looking at consciousness more broadly. Hello, Quai, just passing by because I'm on my way to work. I'm just gonna say good morning and stay awesome. You stay awesome, Quai. But I hope you have a lovely week or lovely day. Well, a lovely week because I guess it's Monday for you. Oh no, Monday, bros. It's so lame. Um, but have a good day at work. I hope it goes quick and you can get back home and chill out soon. But thank you for stopping by as always. I think I'm gonna call into work myself tomorrow early, and just be like, hey, I'd rather stay home today. I'd rather work from home today, because if I move my neck too much, it hurts. Surely my boss would be like, you know what, that's fair, that's fair. And if it doesn't, then like I guess what I can just do is like if anyone asks, hey, can you pick this up? Like if there's anything to be moved, I'll volunteer and do it, and then hurt myself and be like, you know what, I told you guys that I wasn't good today, so now I'm gonna sue you. And then I'd be out of work, and I'd probably be asked, well, why did you do that, even though you were hurt? And then I'd lose, and I get sued for like false suing. Then I get arrested for like falsely claiming or something. The reading was great. I absorbed maybe 40% of it. Yeah, it was a tough couple of pages. I'm not gonna lie, especially some of the more the knowledge argument. At the beginning was fine, but like as it got kind of deeper into things, it was definitely getting tricky to follow all the different terminology. Uh, I I mentioned it before when there weren't as many people here, but I was on a I was on a friend's stream on both Friday night and Saturday night. My friend Diamandis. I shouted him out earlier, but if you guys want to, it's basically just me and Dia and Son Albionus just chatting away. I also sing Barbie Girl with Dia while he's in the shower. I'll leave you guys work out what the hell that means. Um, I also sing. I sang a little bit of other stuff, just kind of like at random points. So if you want to listen to that, but I'm thinking of doing maybe even this week, maybe this week, someday I will do a singing stream. I'm thinking, will I do a Christmas themed karaoke? Yeah, yeah, karaoke. Although I'll have to go find a bunch of karaoke versions, and then I'll have to go learn the karaoke versions and be good with the timing. I think I'll probably look for ones that are like have the backing vocals slightly in the background just to help a little, because I haven't done much karaoke before. I usually listen to songs with with the singers, and I'm singing along, and I'm doing my best to get away from that though. Ugh, I'm getting the Cartesian dualism is what really explains the difference between zombies and you. Well, I'm that's definitely a way that we could explain it. Uh, but of course, then there's the interaction problem. As Fesser points out, it's sort of like, you know, Cartesian dualism would certainly explain the differences. That one has no experience, no qualia, no mental aspect, and we do, and that's what differentiates us. But how, in any way, does the mental phenomena, does the mind backing vocals throw me off when doing karaoke? I find what does I find if they're very very slight, it helps me. Actually, I'll just finish that. Um, how does the mental interact with the physical in any fashion to have any causal effects on the material world? So, which the interaction problem is definitely difficult. But backing vocals throw me off when doing karaoke. I guess I'll see how they do. I think what they help me do is they just help me stay in time. If they're not too loud, I kind of sing over them and I don't even notice them. But if they're very loud, suddenly you're kind of like you're trying to match them, and it's a little bit weirder. It just helps me be like, okay, and in here, this is when I start singing, and here. Uh, but I was kind of just like messing around. I was listening to some Christmas songs. I might do like a Christmas themed songs, but then I'll also throw in some random songs as well, like Bad Bad Leroy Brown, or maybe with Photographs and Memories. Photographs and Memories is a song I've been listening to a lot recently. It's a very sad song. Well, it's kind of sad, but it's a great song. Jim Crochet is such an amazing singer. I might just sing random stuff that comes to mind as well. Like I'll probably go through a couple of Christmas songs and then I'll just be like, okay, random time. Or maybe I'll like pull in one of my friends if they're available and we can do a duet. As terrible as that would be. But I definitely want to do a karaoke because I feel like every VTuber has to do at least one karaoke. Like, can you even call yourself a real VTuber if you haven't done a single karaoke stream? I don't think so. I think you have to, at least once, even if it's terrible. karaoke is all about fun, not skill. Exactly, exactly. It's all about just like grooving and having a fun time. Oh, I got this toy from someone. It's like a if you imagine a Rubik's cube, but rather than being able to turn each side and stuff, instead it comes apart and like there's like three blocks attached and they can turn left or right, and then there's maybe from one of the blocks at the end and there's more blocks attached that are like down, and you have to put it back together, put it back into the form of a square. And I know I can do it if I just spent enough time with it, but I don't want to spend the time, so it's just sitting on my desk being a nuisance, just being incomplete. But yeah, karaoke would be good fun. I'm thinking maybe doing it maybe Wednesday or something, or Thursday. I'll find some day to do it. But but yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I'd like to do like uh, jingle bell, jingle bell rock, jingle bells swing and jingle bells ring, snowing and blowing up bushels of fun. Now the jingle hop has begun. Like stuff like that. That's kind of groovy. And then I could try and look for some like deeper voice stuff. I guess like oh, Bing Cosby's. I love Bing Cosby's version of It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go. Take a look at the 5 and 10, listening once again, with candy canes and silver lanes aglow. Now, my key is probably all off, but there's no backing vocal, there's no music for me to be off key, so shut up. There's nothing for me to be off key in relation to. What's some other songs like even something just silly like Grandma got run over by a reindeer, or even Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That'd be a good one. That'd be a fun one, nice and easy as well. What's some other Christmas songs that I could do? I want to start taking notes. Oh, thank you, D. I love like glow stick emotes. Some other songs I could do. Well, south side of Chicago is the baddest part of town. And if you go down there, you better best beware of a man named Leroy Brown. Now Leroy, more in trouble. You see, he stand about 6'4". All the downtown ladies call him treetop lover. All the men just call him sir. And he's bad, bad. Leroy Brown, baddest man in the whole damn town. Better than old King Kong, meaner than a junkyard dog. Oh, I love Jim Crochet. He's the greatest writer. He's the greatest writer that never got to fully um that we never got to fully experience. He wrote so many amazing songs, and he unfortunately passed away. I think he was only about 30 years of age, around that anyway, when he passed away in a plane accident, a plane crash. And it's so saddening to think of the how many stories that he had to tell that that were in his mind, that he probably had songs to imagine and to create that just are lost to time now. Ah, it's unfortunate. But yeah, I'll definitely find a couple more songs to do. I'm thinking of maybe doing as well. Let It Snow is a good one. Let It Snow is a good one. I might do if I can find like a duet partner, because I don't think I can do both sides of it. I'd love to do Baby It's Cold Outside. I think that's a great song. And shut up to those who say, "Oh, it's creepy." It's not creepy. The woman is she's clearly worried about what like society will think about her. She wants to stay there, but she's like, well, what will her father say? What will society say? It's literally a song about her following her own feelings. So shush. I love Baby It's Cold Outside. Baby, it's cold outside. But baby, it's cold outside. Been hoping that you'd drop in. I'll take your hands, they're just like ice. Oh, I'd love to do it with some. I'd have to learn it properly because I haven't listened to it in a while. You know, I only listen to it when Christmas rolls around. But I haven't been listening to too much Christmas songs properly yet. But I'm starting to get in that mood. It's starting to get Christmassy. Um, like all the lights and stuff are starting to be hung up around all the cities. It's nice. It's nice. I love it. One of my favorite times of the year. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Oh God. Ugh. I like Lady Gaga's performance of it. That's a good one. I like there's a very old not VTuber, YouTuber called Call Me Kevin is how he's known nowadays. But he did a performance of it with another girl. I can't remember her name, but I used to watch Call Me Kevin ages back. I think he was the first YouTuber that I ever watched. He's another Irish YouTuber, but he he's an OG in terms of how long he's been around because he used to have a YouTube channel called ZX No Regrets ZZXZ, uh, and that's an old reference right there. You're talking about going back into like 2010, I want to say 2008, 2010. Welcome in, Teal, and thank you very much for the hydrate redeem. We're just we kind of finished up our reading today, and we've just been kind of talking about the book as well, but also about like possible songs to do for karaoke. I'm thinking of doing it in the next day or two. Although I'll have to find the karaoke versions, and I'm gonna have to sing without the backing tracks. It's gonna be bad, but it'll be fun. The trailers and info for the Fallout show look bad. I think I saw that. I didn't really take a look at them, but like most gaming shows do not go well. I heard that the Witcher all right. I know they made a Witcher one, like treating the West Coast like the East Coast bad. What? Like, they're different things. I never played much Fallout to be quite honest. Direct lore conf. Oh no, that's the worst part. Where like, like the authors or the writers of the show clearly didn't do their homework. Or if they did do their homework and they actually looked at the source material, they just willingly throw it out and are like, "No, I know how to write this. I can do a better job." Ignoring the aspects of the series that people actually enjoyed. And just annoying the actual fans of the show looking for a broader appeal. It's happened a lot of times. I'll have to check it out though. Look it up on Twitter and be like, watch the people arguing over stuff. This probably ends up with more people considering 1 and 2 and New Vegas to be the only real Fallout games. I actually really want to play 1 and 2 because I've seen videos on it and it looks so like it like just from an RPG perspective, they look wild. Like you could really get deep into them. Same with Morrowind. But I know that New Vegas is like considered the gold standard for Fallout. You have guys like and Morrowind too. Yeah, I have Morrowind, but I just haven't played it. I remember I watched this. I watched like a 12-hour video. I think it was 12 hours anyway. It was something like that on a guy who reviewed every little bit of that game. 1 and 2 were a little hard to interface with. Yeah, I've seen like it seems like kind of like they're games that you probably have to do multiple runs and you've like lost a load of times before you kind of get used to the way things work. Patrician, yeah, that's who it was. It was Patrician TV. I think that's his name. Really, really good videos. I like it, and they're great to just throw on and just allow him talk while you're doing other work. They're like my streams. Oh, I wonder will I do anything for the moment? Hmm. I'm just looking to see is there anything. No. Ugh. Let me take a look at who might be around. Who is on? Who is on? Hmm. Daya is still on. He's still doing his thing, so we could raid into Daya. I think I might leave another little bit just to hang out for a little bit more. Because I didn't stream as much as I would have liked. I didn't stream as much as I would have liked this weekend. But you know that those were unforeseen circumstances. I couldn't do anything about that, unfortunately. Gosh, the power armor looks like it's jiggling around. Okay, I'm gonna have to go look it up later. I'm definitely gonna have to because I can already imagine people being angry on Twitter, and that's always fun. It's always fun to look at the stuff. I saw that guy Dream, the Minecraft YouTuber. He seems to have stuff going on about him all the time. Sometimes I wonder, is it even like, it's like some of the stuff is just like, it's so constant that it's like, okay, someone's making stuff up. I think some of it has been because I used to follow a lot of the drama around him. Back during like the Minecraft speedrun stuff. That's because I was a big fan of Technoblade. When he was around doing stuff. He even, and I was like kind of a big supporter of him. Ah, I miss him. He was a really unique person. Just his way of doing things was very, very cool. But anyway, yeah, Dream is a Dream seems to have the ability of making either people love him or absolutely despise him. I was watching the guys making Minecraft spooky and the guys going back to beta 1.7.3. I played Minecraft for like a bit, like a couple of months, but I never got deep into it. It's like a completely different game to when I played it. I don't even know what version I was on, because I was just a baba when I was started playing it. And by a baba, I mean I was just like, I just don't remember. uh, but yeah, I think I'm gonna end it there because I do have to be up early. I like the combat update, but the world gen for 1.7.3 is god tier. They've really upgraded the world generation, I think, recently, haven't they? They like like the skybox is way higher and the caves and stuff are like insane nowadays. Well, I guess I was kind of doing an ASMR. Will I? Let me think. Who is there to? I'm just looking to see, is there anyone that is good to send on a little raid? And I'm thinking, do I go for someone who's also doing like proper ASMR? I guess I haven't really been doing proper ASMR. I think for the most part we've been kind of chilled, a nice cozy reading, but then also just normal talking. I like to do a proper ASMR stream where I do like the rubbing the mic and stuff and going for a while. But yeah, I think this has just kind of been a fairly chilled out stream, not necessarily pure ASMR. So it's fine to send you guys off to someone who is a little bit loud. I think we'll send you guys over to my good friend Dia Diamandis, and this is the same guy that I was. He just got raided actually. Okay, so that's gonna be funny. Because he's gonna have to say his thing again. He does like every time he gets raided, he has to sing a song. He's like, "Thank you for the raiding. This is the raiding song." It's cute, but but yeah, thank you all for joining me. I hope you all enjoyed the reading, even though if it was a little bit tough. I won't lie. But go give some love to Daya. He's a lovely guy, and it's his 500 follower celebration streams. I'm saying streams because he's done multiple. He's done 3 in a row. I was there for last Friday and Saturday. So if you guys want to check those VODs out, you can probably find me there watching him take a shower. I won't explain it, but yeah. Thank you guys for joining me. Go Rev Mila Mahagut and Slán go Fáil.